Have you ever witnessed a moment that completely changed how you see the world? That's what happened to everyone at Westridge Elementary that unforgettable spring day. Before I tell you this incredible story that's touched thousands of lives, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that will warm your heart and restore your faith in humanity. Mark Donovan never expected to find love again. Not after losing his wife to cancer 3 years ago, leaving him to raise their daughter Lily alone. At 38, he'd resigned himself to a life of parent-teacher conferences, weekend soccer games, and tucking his little girl into bed each night with stories about the mother she barely remembered. His world had narrowed to his daughter and his job as an architectural engineer, until that rainy Tuesday afternoon when he arrived late to Lily's school dance recital. The auditorium was packed when Mark slipped through the side door, scanning the crowd for an empty seat. He spotted one in the second row and made his way over, mumbling apologies as he squeezed past other parents. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" he whispered to the woman beside the empty chair. She looked up, her eyes a startling shade of green against her olive skin. "Sorry, I'm in a wheelchair," she said, gesturing to the folded mobility aid tucked beside her seat. "I need the aisle spot when I transfer back." Mark nodded, embarrassed. "Of course, I'm sorry. I'll find somewhere else." "Wait," she said, touching his arm lightly. "There's actually space on my other side if you don't mind climbing over." That's how Mark Donovan met Elena Vasquez, the new music teacher who had transformed the school's arts program in the 6 months since she'd arrived. What he didn't know then was how she would transform his life, and how his response to her disability would eventually captivate an entire community. Elena had been a promising concert pianist before a car accident 3 years earlier left her with a spinal cord injury. She'd fought her way back from the darkest period of her life, reinventing herself as a music teacher who brought classical music to children who might otherwise never experience it. Her passion was evident in every word she spoke, and Mark found himself lingering after the recital, Lily's small hand in his, asking Elena questions about the music program. "Daddy, Ms. Vasquez is the one who taught me the special song," Lily said, tugging at his sleeve. "The one I practice every day." Elena smiled. "Lily has a natural talent. You should be very proud." "I am," Mark said, feeling something stir inside him that had been dormant for years. "Maybe we could continue this conversation sometime? Over coffee, perhaps?" The hesitation in Elena's eyes was brief but unmistakable. "That's very kind, but—" "Please, Ms. Vasquez." Lily interrupted. "Daddy makes the best pancakes on Saturdays. You could come for breakfast instead of coffee." Mark watched as Elena's expression softened at his daughter's enthusiasm. "Pancakes do sound better than coffee," she admitted. That Saturday morning changed everything. Elena arrived at their modest suburban home, navigating her wheelchair up the ramp Mark had hastily installed the night before. What was meant to be a quick breakfast stretched into hours of conversation while Lily played in the backyard. Elena spoke of her life before and after the accident, of the music that had saved her, of her dreams to create an accessible community arts center someday. Mark found himself sharing things he hadn't told anyone, about his grief, his fears of failing as a single parent, the architectural designs he sketched late at night that no one ever saw. By the time Elena left that afternoon, something had shifted between them. Their relationship developed slowly over the following months. Coffee dates turned into family outings with Lily, who adored Elena's stories and the way she could make any piece of music come alive. Mark found himself looking forward to their time together, planning their outings with careful consideration for accessibility. But it wasn't always easy. Mark witnessed the stares Elena received, the way people sometimes spoke to him instead of her, the buildings she couldn't enter because of a single step. He saw her frustration when she couldn't reach something, her determination when faced with obstacles, and her grace when dealing with ignorance. 6 months into their relationship, Mark took Elena to dinner at an upscale restaurant to celebrate her birthday. The evening was perfect until they tried to leave and discovered that someone had parked blocking the accessible exit. They waited 40 minutes for the owner to return, Elena's face carefully composed to hide her humiliation as staff apologized profusely. In the car afterward, she finally broke down. "This is what you're signing up for, Mark. This is what dating me means, always checking if places are accessible, dealing with stairs, planning everything in advance. It's exhausting, and it's not fair to you or Lily." Mark took her hand. "Elena, I'm an architect. I design buildings for a living. Do you know what I see when we can't get into a restaurant or when you struggle to reach something? I don't see your limitations, I see bad design. I see problems that can be fixed." That night, unable to sleep, Mark sat at his drafting table and began to sketch. By morning, he had the beginnings of a plan that would change not just their lives, but their entire community. Mark's project began simply, redesigning his own home to be fully accessible for Elena. He widened doorways, installed smart home technology that responded to voice commands, created a kitchen where someone in a wheelchair could cook comfortably. He documented every step of the process, creating detailed plans and recording videos of the transformations. When Elena first saw the completed renovations, she wept. "You did all this for me?" "I did it for us," Mark corrected her. "For our future." But Mark didn't stop there. He approached his architectural firm with a proposal, a community initiative to help local businesses become more accessible. To his surprise, his bosses were enthusiastic, seeing both the social good and the potential for positive publicity. The Access for All project was born. Mark and his team offered free consultations to local businesses, providing simple, cost-effective solutions to make their spaces more inclusive. They created a website and social media channels documenting their work, with Elena often appearing alongside Mark to explain the impact of these changes from her perspective. Their first major success came when they renovated the town's beloved but aging theater, installing ramps, accessible seating, and an elevator. The grand reopening featured a concert where Elena performed publicly for the first time since her accident, playing alongside students from her music program. The video of her performance went viral, bringing national attention to their project. Suddenly, Mark and Elena were being interviewed on morning shows, their story touching hearts across the country. Donations poured in, allowing them to expand their work to other communities. But not everyone supported their mission. Some business owners resisted, citing costs and disruption. Others questioned Mark's motives, suggesting he was exploiting Elena's disability for fame or profit. The criticism hurt, especially when it affected Elena. "Maybe we should scale back," she suggested one night after a particularly harsh article appeared in the local paper. "Focus on your career, on Lily." Mark shook his head. "This is my career now. And Lily? She's learning that love means fighting to make the world better for the people you care about." Indeed, 9-year-old Lily had become their most enthusiastic supporter, creating her own YouTube channel where she demonstrated how the modifications in their home worked and interviewed other children with disabled family members about their experiences. The turning point came 18 months into their project, when Mark was approached by a developer planning a new community center. Instead of consulting on accessibility features, they wanted him to be the lead architect, with a mandate to create a building that was universally accessible from the ground up. Mark accepted on one condition, that the center include a state-of-the-art music school and performance space, designed with input from Elena. The developer agreed, and Mark threw himself into creating his masterpiece. The design process brought Mark and Elena closer than ever. They spent evenings poring over plans, with Elena pointing out details that would make the space truly inclusive. Mark incorporated features he'd never considered before, tactile guides for the visually impaired, quiet rooms for those with sensory sensitivities, adjustable height features throughout. As the center took shape, so did their relationship. On a snowy evening in December, with the partially constructed building illuminated behind them, Mark proposed. He designed a ring with musical notes wrapping around a small diamond, and as he placed it on her finger, a quartet of Lily's music students emerged to play the piece Elena had been teaching Lily when they first met. "You've rebuilt my world," Elena told him through tears. "How could I not want to share it with you?" Their wedding 6 months later was held in the completed community center, the first event in the building. Guests marveled at the thoughtful design, the way the space accommodated everyone effortlessly. Lily served as both flower girl and ring bearer, proudly walking beside Elena as she wheeled down the aisle in a dress she had designed herself, with Mark's help. But the most moving moment came during the reception, when Mark unveiled his wedding gift to Elena, the Elena Vasquez Scholarship Fund for Adaptive Music Education, endowed with proceeds from the book they had written together about their journey and the accessible design principles they developed. This fund will ensure that no child is denied the opportunity to make music because of a disability, Mark announced, his voice thick with emotion. "Because my wife taught me that the most beautiful music comes from overcoming the greatest challenges." The community center became a model for inclusive design, attracting visitors from around the world. Mark's architectural firm created a dedicated division focused on universal design, with Mark at the helm. Elena expanded her music program, training teachers in adaptive techniques and developing new technologies to make music accessible to all. Their story continued to inspire others. Families with disabled members moved to their town, drawn by its growing reputation for accessibility. Business owners who had initially resisted their efforts now proudly displayed Access for All certification. The mayor established an accessibility commission, with Elena as its first chairperson. 5 years after that first meeting at Lily's recital, Mark and Elena welcomed twins, a boy and girl who grew up understanding that differences were to be celebrated, not hidden. Their home became a gathering place for families like and unlike their own, a testament to the community they had built together. On the 10th anniversary of the Access for All project, a documentary filmmaker released a feature about their journey. The final scene showed Mark, Elena, Lily, now a poised teenager, and the twins at the community center, surrounded by the people whose lives they had touched. "When I said, 'Sorry, I'm in a wheelchair' that day, I was apologizing for taking up space, for being inconvenient," Elena reflected in the film's closing interview. "Mark was the first person who made me feel that I didn't need to apologize for existing as I am. He didn't try to fix me, he worked to fix the world around me. And in doing so, he showed everyone that love isn't about accepting limitations, it's about removing barriers." Mark squeezed her hand. "I was just an architect who fell in love with a musician. Everything else followed naturally from that." The camera panned out to show the thriving community they had built, accessible shops and restaurants, parks with adaptive equipment, schools designed for all abilities, before returning to focus on their faces. "The most beautiful thing we can build in this world," Mark said, "is a place where everyone belongs. That's not just good design, it's good humanity." As the credits rolled, viewers around the world reached for tissues, moved by the power of one man's response to a simple statement, "Sorry, I'm in a wheelchair." If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that love can truly change the world, one thoughtful action at a time. Remember, the greatest barriers we face aren't physical, they're the limitations we place on our capacity to care for one another.